Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Randy Bach. I'm the president of the Newton Taxpayers Association, and I'm thrilled to have an amazing guest, one of the single most inquisitive minds I have come across in my years. I think you're going to find him quite interesting as well. He's a professor at Tufts Medical School, and he is by trade historically an interventional radiologist. Try to say that 3 times fast. Steve Gerzoff is, you're going to find him pretty interesting and unique, so you got to hang around. There are going to be some sessions and parts of the show where he's reading, but he's really awesome. He's done a lot of research on things that are going on in our schools. And I know this is the Newton Taxpayers Association show, but what is the single greatest expenditure of every single taxpayer within Newton towards the city of Newton? It's your schools. So you're putting money in the piggy bank, and you don't necessarily have much control nor necessarily much knowledge of what's going on in the schools. And Steve is going to bring us a perspective of a 50-year resident and having had his own kids go through the schools and some interesting new perspectives now. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Steve Gerzoff. Thank you for coming on the show. We are honored to have you here. Do you have anything else to add to the intro I gave you?
Thank you, Randy. Not really, except that I have been here for 50 years, and I'm afflicted with something called reality testing. I look and see for reality. They call me an interventional radiologist because in radiology, I invented things that changed surgery and medicine. At first, I was vilified on the press and the podium until it was a lead article in the New England Journal of Medicine.
Similarly, so you're not only interventionalist, you're inventionalist.
Yes, and when I see a question about something, I start digging into it. And then if I know something about it, I feel like I have to do something about it. So that's what brought me here tonight.
Now, that's an amazing characteristic. There are a lot of people who will go along to get along. And sometimes that is not necessarily the best project and prospect for us. We owe it to our kids as they become adults, and the school system is the kind of our investment in our future. And we need to know really what's going on in the schools. We keep hearing that there's no CRT in the schools, there's no this, there's no that. But I think there is no literal class in critical race theory, but a lot of the same sentiments of the kind of woke culture, cancel culture left have been imbued in the schools. And I think Steve's going to present an interesting case study. So how did you get an insight into what's going on in the schools, and what specific topic did you investigate?
Well, it sort of happened by accident. As a Newtonian, I support the Newton Free Library. I was in the library about 10 or 15 years ago, and I noticed a book they were throwing out, recycling or whatever, for a quarter. It was the writings of Osama bin Laden and Ayman Zawahiri, and something tipped me off that maybe if I read this I could understand where 9/11 came from. So I bought the book, I started reading it, and I was astounded. This all seemed to track back to an interpretation of the Quran. I know you just can't buy a Quran and read it and understand it, so I started reading about it. I read voraciously about it. And then I learned about some of the religious beliefs. And for Osama bin Laden, it was their command for dawah, expansion of Islam, and sort of a revenge against the United States forces in the holy soil of Saudi Arabia. That just prepared my mind for other things that would happen. One of those things was walking around my neighborhood one day. I saw one of my neighbor's kids having a yard sale. And what she was selling was this book, The Modern Middle East. She had just graduated from, I believe it was Newton South, maybe Newton North High School, and that piqued my curiosity because I'd done a lot of reading, but not this book. So I asked her a little about it. And she had lots of answers. They were very quick, almost very pat, standard answers. And I realized I was talking to somebody who could have grown up in the streets of Nablus, not Newton, or Bethlehem, not Boston. I was beginning to feel that she'd been programmed or indoctrinated. So for maybe only $1, I bought the book and started reading it. And as I was perusing it, I noticed that there was a section on the Hamas Charter, which from my own reading I knew fairly well. They covered it in 7 lines, but they did not cover the most important parts. There are 3 major lines in their motto, and
push Israel into the sea?
More or less. I had it written down. I should know it by heart. Here it is. The first three, Allah is our God. 2, the Prophet is our model. And 3, the Quran is its constitution. Well, that's the motto of Hamas to a point, but it did not include number 4 and 5, which is jihad is its path, and death is, for the sake of Allah, is its loftiest of wishes. And that is the basis of the Hamas charter that promotes Palestinians to attack Israelis. They never covered the real meaning of jihad, except to say it was really to be a better person inside. When from my own reading, I know that the word jihad appears 90 times in the Quran, and in each case, it is an explicit command to a violent dispossession, maybe even murder or capture of peoples who are not Muslims, be they be Jews, Christians, or other non-Muslim peoples.
Hindu included. I mean, I think one of the great overlooked genocides was on the Hindus.
Well, one of the things about jihad is there's the expression, the third choice. This is a textbook about the third choice, and that choice is when advancing Muslims, now this is back in the 14th to 16th centuries, or even earlier, when they capture a group, an entire people or a city, they're offered 3 choices: either convert to Islam, become a dhimmi. A dhimmi is a second-class citizen under Islam who basically has no civil rights whatsoever. But they do have to pay something called a jizya. That's an annual tax. And the way they pay it is they offer the money to the qadi, the Muslim judge, and he, at the moment he takes the money, smacks them on the back of their neck with his walking stick as a ritual reenactment of their future decapitation if they do not pay the jizya tax the following year. It became a major support for the expansion of Islam by enslaving entire populations to reap the benefits of this. The third choice is simply death. And because Hindus did not have a text like the Quran, the Hebrews, Jews had the Torah, Christians have the Bible. That sufficed the Muslims to let them become dhimmis, but the Hindus had no such literature. So they were just slaughtered en masse right off the bat.
Yeah, do you know what year that was?
Islam invasion, probably 9th to 10th centuries, maybe to 11th century.
Right. So it was before Twitter, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to make that clear. So, you know, obviously your knowledge on this topic is encyclopedic, if we can in fact trust encyclopedias. But, you know, I think you've done an interesting job. The question, I think, always comes down to, well, you know, that's not, you know, Islam in general. There are, you know, countries with whom we maintain reasonably friendly relations and to which you can travel. I would have to say, though, in general, it's not quite as safe to travel to Islamic Republic of the fill in the blank than, say, France or Switzerland or whatever. I've got one friend who's traveled entirely the world, and he's gone every province pretty much in every country on earth, and he's left out, I think, North Korea and wartime Iraq. Iran, he actually was able to travel in, but leaving the encyclopedic part of Islam about, I'd like to kind of circle back to the schools and your interest in the schools and how, you know, maybe you had this knowledge and you're trying to push back on a message, and I'm just curious whether you were able to achieve success, and if we have other people, you know, what are the clues and hints by which other people can find out what their kids are actually learning as they progress through school? So I'll stick with the main question, which is, you know, what was your pathway towards trying to protest this, and did you go to school committee meetings? What was that like for you? How were you treated, and did they respect, you know, the kind of perspective?
Well, finding this book led directly to my saying, I want to find out more. I don't act until I know. And so I started going to Newton School Committee meetings, and I found them to be very interesting. You had to arrive before 7 o'clock. You had to sign up. This is at the center in, I believe it's Newtonville. Mm-hmm. And you get on a list, and you're given either 2 or 3 minutes to ask your questions, state whatever it is your question is. The school committee members were very polite, but in a very unusual way. They were in a semicircle. You had the microphone. You could talk to them, but there was literally no response whatsoever. I often felt like I was being treated by being ignored, disrespectful. There was never any answer to a question. And then at the end of that 7:30 time, the half hour for questions, they announced the meeting was not over, but they were repairing into executive sessions. Now, from my understanding of civil procedure in the United States, that kind of recession is only for salary discussions, reputations, hiring problems, disciplinary problems, or reputation of teachers.
So your point is, when they're having these public sessions, they're not maintaining the public aspect of it. They're not engaging with you. They kind of go back in their own corner. They're leaving you hanging.
I thought it was an absolute sham because no discussion of the curriculum or anything was being held. You could come to the meeting, you could sign up, you could say your piece, and I did this at least half a dozen times. There were a lot of people who expressed anger and outrage at many of the things I was upset about. I tried to maintain a moderate and respectful appearance, as I always do, but with some facts that I was questioning, and there was simply no answer whatsoever.
Did they say whether this was outside their scope? I mean, I've spoken with school committee people. I've had some on the show here. And they always say, well, we're really concerned about the bigger issues, the budget, and so forth. And our role as school committee, really the only kind of lever we have is hiring and firing the superintendent. So, it's kind of like if you have a cruise line and you can maybe do one thing. You can, I suppose, get rid of the captain, but if the crew and everybody else on the boat is not following orders or they're doing on their own, there's only a limited amount you can kind of navigate, no pun intended. And so, I've spoken with school people lately, and they're like, we can't really do anything about that. That's way beyond. We don't even deal with the principals. We don't hire and fire principals. We don't hire and fire teachers. So I don't know if do they feel that they're too far removed from changing things on a school basis? And if so, what is the recourse? I mean, there's a public kind of exposure to this, which I think you've been excellent at, and you've spoken at other places, I believe. Anyway, what's your perspective on that kind of question?
It's more like the old Lily Tomlin character, I believe, on Laugh-In, where she was playing a phone operator, and the answer to a question was, hello? Oh, yes, we're the phone company. We don't care. We don't have to. And hang up. It was, now whether they meant to convey that, I don't know, but that was the message that I felt was clearly given and certainly received by me, but I kept coming back. I can't imagine that month after month, meeting after meeting, there would be a half hour and then no time for an actual answer to a question. I felt it was just basically a scam.
So did you go around it all? Did you try to address this with any of the teachers or principals and so forth? Did you find the teacher of this course? And how did they get the books? I mean, I've got a load of questions. I can't ask them all, but maybe you can touch on the ones you feel comfortable with.
Well, I actually had personal experience with one of the teachers. The Harvard Center, Middle East Center, and Outreach Center is funded by Saudi Arabia and Aramco. And naturally, if they are paying the freight, they will have their view expressed. This book was written by James Galvin. At the time, he was, I don't know if he was a paid employee, but he was getting money from a sheikh from the Emirates, I believe, a billionaire. And as a result, I felt he had a conflicted issue. In any event, this book turned up when one of the directors of the Newton History section went to the Center for Middle East Studies at Harvard and was given this book. The director and the assistant director there were both BDS, that's boycott, divestment, and sanctions people. And one of them was actually married to a woman who's the director of the Islamic Initiative and Outreach. And it seemed to me that part of the problem was that the oil sheiks were buying the minds of our kids because they were indoctrinating them into their view of the world, their view of Islam as a religion of peace, which I'm sure it is to many Muslims. By the way, there are 1.8 billion Muslims in the world, and there are 1.8 billion different interpretations. And I personally respect all of them to the point where they say they have to kill me because I'm not a Muslim. That's where it, maybe a little before that.
When you say respect, I mean, what do you mean by that?
I acknowledge there is the religion of Islam, not political Islam, but the religion of Islam itself provides security, safety, feelings of peace and calm to many believers.
Right.
It provides that just the way Judaism or Christianity
Right, so
do.
devil's advocate is always, well, if you go back to any of the ancient texts, you go back to the Old Testament, there's smite this enemy, that, there's a lot of smiting and smoting and whatnot that happens in, the Bible, and people had a different standard, and if you're talking about 1.8 billion Muslims, that is not certainly the adherence to Al Qaeda per se, but so my question is, how did this come through with the student you spoke with, and then if there were objections, did you find this book in particular kind of minimizing the aspects of jihad that brought about 9/11, and in what way did you find it kind of, well, we'll leave that maybe aside. I assume you found it in certain ways reprehensible, but moreover, were they teaching it in a balanced way? I mean, I think the real key here is that there's this book, and it's a Harvard professor kind of guy, and so forth, but there are other books as well. Do you find that people are getting a balance? I don't think you can have everything in balance. I don't think you can teach Mein Kampf and anti-Mein Kampf. I don't think Mein Kampf should be there in the first place. So are you putting this in the category of we shouldn't be teaching this book at all, or we should be teaching this book in balance? And what were your aspects of addressing this with the actual faculty? Did you have any conversations with the principal or anything of that sort?
No, I did not. Other people from Newton did, and were basically sent packing on their way. And that's when Newton Taxpayers got together and started asking for the curriculum.
When you say Newton Taxpayers, you mean not the organization per se, you mean people in general?
Taxpayers got together and made an organization that started asking to see what they were teaching. The school committee refused to divulge that, and they had to file a FOIA, that's Freedom of Information, and actually one group that I was not a member of actually sued the school committee for that information. It's unfortunate that it came to that. As far as my opinion of the book, there is no bias, there is total bias and no aspect of balance or context. The entire program that the students were, or most of the program, was evaluated by a woman named Ellen Wald, who's a PhD from Princeton and who runs a group called Verity Educate. She analyzed all the materials that were available. I read this several years ago. It was a 153-page document. I could not believe how well it was itself documented with references. The report itself was virtually excoriating of the lack of balance, the absence of bias, and the total lack of professionalism in the presentation to students.
In the presence of bias.
Oh, yeah, total, I'm sorry.
I was paying attention. I just want you to know that I was actually
thoroughly biased.
Now, Steve is brilliant. And so did you ever have any interactions with the principal at all in this matter?
No, I felt at that point my getting involved on a one-to-one basis would be inappropriate, and I saw no point to it. Because I realized that they were going to do what they were going to do. There had to be a different answer. Now that time has changed, the answer may be that where many parents are recognizing how woke things have become, how woke the student body is, that things have so changed that they feel, parents, more empowered to try to do something about their kids and their education, because they don't want them to turn out, just sitting behind a Starbucks counter. They want them to have some kind of future.
There's the expression, go woke, go broke, and that's applied to companies that ignore the half of their audience nationwide that is not in keeping with their own political philosophy. But there's the other aspect of go woke, go broke, which is something I was just listening to a minute ago. There's a lieutenant governor in North Carolina named Mark Robinson, and he's an amazing speaker, very powerful guy, and he's African-American, black, and they have a bipartite system, so he's actually in opposition to the governor of North Carolina, so they're having their kind of political fisticuffs. But he's pointing out that his issue is major, focus is towards the schools and education, and his aspect of go woke, go broke is that they're putting so much emphasis on these political messages because they feel they have a hot, kind of a captive audience, and they've captured the minds, and they're ignoring, the 3 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic, and they're not getting the skills to get jobs and so forth. We don't really have that issue per se in Newton because we come from kind of an upper class than the average of North Carolina. But I think there are some aspects that permeate as well and are evocative of here, which is that our test scores have gone down over time, if I'm not mistaken. If you have an opposing view, let me know. And in general, the kind of emphasis has been kind of a political one. I think you had an email from one of the principals of our schools, and we've made a big effort to have diversity hires in the school, and I'm not opposed to hiring anybody based for any reason, because over the years I've hired people from different countries, different colors, different religions, and so forth. But for me, it's always been a question of, can this person do the job? And sometimes I think we are putting the cart before the horse. But and the role. I was kind of surprised. You pointed me towards one of the principal's websites, and I was kind of surprised how political it was. You wanted?
I was actually astounded. This was sent out on a Friday evening, November 19th, 2021. This was the day that Kyle Rittenhouse was found innocent in Kenosha, Wisconsin. The supervising person, whatever, wrote, "While I can't be surprised by the decision of the Rittenhouse case, my lack of surprise doesn't diminish the pain and the hurt. We should anticipate that many people in our school community are reeling from this verdict." Now, this is a verdict of innocence about a white boy who is 18 years old shooting and killing two white men, there's nothing racial here, in self-defense. Now, they were using the technicalities of the Wisconsin state law for self-defense, not that applied anywhere else in the United States. The decision, he goes on, shows the disparity of our legal system. If Kyle Rittenhouse were black, the outcome would be significantly different. Furthermore, self-defense is being used in the Ahmaud Arbery case. That's another case that was on at the time as well. This is racism, and he goes on to use the term racism 5 or 6 times in this email. Racism, a system that teaches people that black and brown bodies are less than others. Now, there's been nothing racist about the shootings, okay? He goes on to thank a teacher for setting up a session with the students where they can grieve, whatever. To ignore this event, he says, would be normalizing it. The only time I've heard normalizing is when Palestinians are talking about normalizing relations of Israel, and if you try to do that, they will reach out and kill their own people for normalizing with the Israelis. And then he goes on to say that there should be separate sessions for students who are grieving. Now, all of this is about a situation where no racism is involved. He warns them that self-defense will also be used in the Arbery case. Well, guess what? The Arbery case, they did use self-defense. It didn't fly. And the 3 white men that that killed the black man were convicted, and then it became a federal hate crime. They are in jail for life. So this is not only not racist, but it seems like there's a previous agenda that this person has to make everything seem through racist eyes.
Which person is this?
I don't have to mention his name now.
So
I think people
to
who
whom
know.
was the email sent?
To all of his colleagues. This was sent to all of the teachers, I believe, either at Newton North or perhaps Newton South as well. He goes on, by the way, we are living in a time where racial justice is front and center. Now that's interesting. Racial justice, he goes on, racial justice is a value of our school, and you can refer the students to our district statement on racial equity. As soon as you take justice and make it racial, it's not justice. Right. You're putting the question of race on it.
Right, I know. There's collective justice and individual justice, and collective justice is not. We only have a couple minutes left, Steve, so first of all, I want to thank you for a rewarding session and maybe come up with a closing statement. But just to your point, the justice, the holding the scales is blind. And it's like the gold standard in medicine and science is to have a double-blinded, randomized controlled study. So you can't figure out anything unless you take away bias. And the only way to do that is to make sure that nobody knows what's going on. So for testing, we double-blind everything. So justice is literally, well, figuratively in this case, blinded. So you're not supposed to consider all the outside elements. The whole key to it is that if you you know, whatever, purple, polka dot, green, 8 feet tall, 2 feet tall, whatever, you know, I don't know, decapitated somebody, whatever, you know, that's something you did. And if you want to make your own defense that it was, you know, a problem for some other reason, go ahead. But your justice should be individual. And so, you know, at any rate, I agree with you in that. And if you make it collective, and it takes away from the concept of justice per se. So do you have any closing statements on this, or where the schools are, how to deal with things? I mean, if people want to deal with or contact you or your cause, how can they do that, A? And B, what would be your call to action for other individuals who might not have the same concern that you do about this particular aspect, but might you know, start to think about what's going on in the schools in general?
Well, you know, they say one picture is worth 1,000 words. As a radiologist, I show pictures. So I'd like to show this one here. If we can focus in on this. Can we get tight on this one?
We'll have to maybe present that as a slide.
We can do that as a slide later. This is a picture from a map that's a fake map. Actually, it's modified. The green shows what is supposed to be Palestine. It's what it was called by the British. It wasn't the Palestine we know today.
Right, so
this is the picture that the students see. If you see Israel, it's about the size of its neighbors. This is the real picture, where it's less than 1% of all the land of the countries that are around it, the most immediate ones attacking it. As far as who to contact, what to do, go to the school committee, raise your hand, ask questions. You decide. I can't tell you what they are now. We've had some new people coming in. Some of them I've met, and I'm extremely pleased with their backgrounds, and I hope they'll be able to do something with this long-standing problem. But they are individual people, all of them well recommended. So, get involved yourself.
Fair enough. I think that you know, change is a slow thing. I mentioned a cruise ship earlier. I think a lot of what we have here is a cruise ship situation, and I'm not sure whether it's foundering or hitting a reef or whatever. I don't think it's necessarily going in the right direction. I am a little bit more pessimistic about, you know, going to school committees to do anything. I think a lot of this has to be public, and it has to be, in a way, political. You know, and you have to kind of get the word out. So we're hoping to do that a little bit here. I'd like to make this forum open for others who might have similar issues about the schools or about other things going on in Newton. So please contact me. We like to have open discourse and discussion. If you disagree with anything was presented here tonight, the forum is open to you as well. So we believe in free speech, and open to, you know, all those who are available to provide it. I think maybe there's just one book there. Maybe we'll just give a shout
just
out
in
to.
in case we come around to the 1619 debacle, the idea. This book, 1620, a short book by Peter Wood, who is an excellent historian, a real historian, not something that was concocted by a journalist and put on the New York Times.
Yeah, which for the most part has been retracted. At any rate, I think we're going to be ending shortly. And so thank you very much, Steve, for coming on, and appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dr. Bach, for your invitation.